everybody, and welcome back to Gay2k, the podcast for nostalgic millennial queers. Once again, I'm Sarah, and today I'm taking a little departure. Alex isn't with me today, but I am joined by another one of my besties from that era of my life, Sindu.
Hello.
Um, so far on this journey, on my nostalgic trip through the early 2000s and late 90s, I've been focusing on first of things. The first kiss between two gay guys on television, which happened on Will and Grace. Willow Rosenberg's coming out story, which was, one of the first coming out narratives for lesbians on TV. Alex and I even talked a little bit about the band Tattoo, which is a whole other thing. First fake lesbian pop band. Wonderful times. But we're gonna skip a little ahead in time today, and for this podcast we're going to focus on January 18th, 2004, and the show The L Word. L Word was a series on Showtime created by Elaine Chalkin, Michelle Abbott, and Kathy Greenberg. And it came about, I don't actually know entirely. I know that they wanted it originally to be called Earthlings, which is one of my favorite tad bits of information.
I don't think
they wanted it to be, I don't think they wanted it to be necessarily like, oh, these women are gay. I think they wanted it to feel like it was about just their lives, which I think the end product is a departure from that, if that was what they were going for, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So let's go back in time to January 18th of 2004. At the box office, Return of the King, the conclusion of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, is still dominating. Number one song on the radio is Hey Ya by Outkast. Love that song. What a throwback. And NASA just decommissioned the Hubble Space Telescope. So, and that same night on Showtime, L Word's pilot episode premieres. Before we get into the L Word, though, I want to talk to Sindu a little bit about Gay2k in general. So really from the late 90s to all of the 2000s, really, what are some of your favorite or most influential pop culture, queer pop culture, or pop culture in general? Things that made you gay is how I like to phrase that.
The first thing is Sailor Moon was on. I watched it in like 96 when it was in Canada, and I would go up to visit my family, and it was on like Y2 or whatever the kids channel was, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And it finally came to the US, and I was obsessed. Like I've never been this level of obsessed with something before. And then obviously the queer season happened, and two queer characters, Sailor Uranus and Neptune, appeared. And even though I was like, I don't know, like 10, I could tell that they weren't cousins. Because the dub, when it aired in the US, casted them as cousins, but it made absolutely no sense. And it cut out obviously all of the kissing parts, but they were so intimate. And then also, like, all of the other Sailor Moon characters, all the girls were obsessed with these two. And I was like, huh, interesting.
Yeah, I was definitely never a huge Sailor Moon kid, but that is awesome. So thank you for explaining a little bit about that. I know I've heard you talk about that before, so that's not new to me, but perhaps for people listening, if you weren't aware of Sailor Moon, it's an impact on lots of people, and continues to be something that queer people reference. So,
and also Mulan came around like in that time period too. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, Mulan was 97. Yeah, Reflection in itself is a whole iconic moment, right?
Yes. And the moment where she like cuts off her hair with a sword and rides away to war, I was like, okay, I'm in. This is amazing. Yeah. Those awesome. Two are standouts for me.
That's awesome. So when I was talking with my good friend Alex about Buffy the Vampire Slayer and kind of just how Willow shaped me, we were also kind of towards the end talking about, is Willow gay or bi? She never says the word
Mm,
lesbian.
right.
I don't know if that was a network thing. She literally never says the word lesbian. And so it was so funny. Like, I was like, I think for me at the time when I was watching it, she had to be
Hmm.
a lesbian. Like, for me, I needed it, right? She had
Yeah.
to be a lesbian. It's the only thing that made sense. And then, like, Alex and I were talking, I was like, I have to ask somebody who's not a lesbian or a gay man this question. So I know you probably watched Buffy
A little
later
bit.
than
Yeah.
when
It
it
wasn't,
aired. Yeah.
yeah, it wasn't around the time that everyone else was watching it. That's for sure.
Yeah. Not when it originally aired, but still probably in the Gay2ks, right?
Yes. Yeah. In the early 2000s, for sure.
Mhm.
Um,
So, your take on Willow's sexuality?
I mean, I think this was the era of queer coded characters. So,
Mm-hmm.
like who knows really? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's but I would say that I think for people producing shows at the time and executives making those decisions, it was easier to have a bisexual coded character on screen than a completely lesbian coded character because the bisexuality allowed men to imagine themselves in that space. So I would say probably most of the executives who okayed that probably thought she was a bisexual coded character.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I can absolutely see that. Um, yeah, and the whole like I know this isn't the Willow episode, but I think it's important to kind of talk about the limitations of what the network was able to do with that character, because I think that is a sharp contrast to what we see in the L Word.
Yeah.
Willow doesn't have lesbian sex while the show was on the WB. It had to
Hmm.
switch networks. The characters had to get older. And so witchcraft and the metaphorical sex that
Hmm.
occurs is, yeah, back to that queer coded thing that you were
I think
talking
witches
about.
are always queer coded.
I mean,
Witches,
to be fair,
vampires, maybe mermaids, just always. There's this like
mermaid.
this I don't know, there's
Yeah.
this undercurrent of like
No,
what else
I
could
like
be
the
happening?
mermaid as like a gender queer discovery kind of
Yeah.
code, or trans code. Like, your
Yeah.
body isn't what it's supposed to be, and you want to be somewhere where your body can be what it's supposed to be. Like,
Yes.
that's so straightforward
Yeah. I like
when you
that.
look at it. When you look at it through the lens that we look at things through, right? I'm sure most straight people aren't watching The Little Mermaid and going like, "Huh, this could be an allegory for a trans woman."
Oh my God. Straight women are obsessed with The Little Mermaid to a weird degree. Like white straight women that I know, that are my age are all like obsessed with The Little Mermaid, and
Yeah,
I'm just like Mulan.
yeah, I get the Little Mermaid thing. I mean, growing up, I think it was probably my Sebastian is one of my favorite Disney characters. I don't know
I love
why. I just love
Sebastian.
him. He's just like a "you're all idiots, don't do that" the whole movie, and I
That's
remember
true.
even loving that as a kid. Like, being like, "You're all gonna die. Listen to the little crab lobster."
Well, that's like I mean Zazu in Lion King is also like that.
Yes.
He's just like don't do these things and then everyone proceeds to do these things.
Oh, Simba. Um, okay, so let's get into our discussion about the Showtime hit series, The L Word, which ran for 6 seasons, which is longer than I remember somehow. Like, I looked at those dates and I'm like, that's my entire, like, that, this show spans my entire singledom. Like, I was dating Courtney by the time the last season. I was dating my
Oh.
wife by the time the last season aired, and I had just come out of the closet. Like,
I was gonna say you have I mean you're serial monogamous. You don't have a lot of single time, but every time
yeah,
you were
but
single has been
no.
during the L
Well,
word.
yeah, in my entire dating history, whether it be in a committed relationship or not, up until meeting my forever partner,
That's amazing. Wait, when did it end? When did the last like season finale? When was that?
sometime in the spring of 2009. So, like, right
Oh
before we
my God.
graduated
Okay.
college, right before we graduated undergrad.
Yeah.
Trippy.
Wow. Okay.
Um, So yeah, it's like it's right in the heart of things. But it aired while we were still in high school. Do you remember the first time you watched it?
Yeah, I didn't watch it until college. I didn't even know it was on in high school. Because I was in South Dakota in Sioux Falls, and literally no one was talking about it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, my school was still like, we started the Gay Straight Alliance in my senior year, and we had to really push for it because a lot of the teachers were against it. So it was definitely not a place where I would have come across it. I came across it because of you guys. Because I got to college and you were like, the L word. And I was like, what is that? But I didn't watch the beginning. Like I didn't watch the pilot, like and then move forward until we were living in that Y Street house um all together. And I remember one night, I think it was like we got the DVDs on Netflix when Netflix used to send you DVDs. Um
Yeah,
or
or Blockbuster, right? Like one
or
of those two
Blockbuster.
things.
Yes. Yes, somebody had, or like somebody had a
Um,
box set or something. But
and I was thinking, like, I own them, and so I don't know, like,
oh, it
and
might
I
have
did
been
look this
yours.
up, but I don't know when because back in the day, shows aired, and then it wasn't like the next day they were ready to go to box set. Like
Right.
it
Yeah.
took time. So I think it's quite possible that season one aired in spring of 2004, and I didn't have the box set until like summer of 2006. Like whether that be I didn't have the money
Hmm.
or so I think that yeah, that would track. I the first time so I knew about it. I do you remember the website After Ellen? It still
Yeah.
exists. Yeah. But it's changed a lot.
It's very
But
different. Yeah.
but like yeah, like 2003, 2004, that was my bible, my escape route. And so they were talking about the L word, and there were reviews, and the reviews, I read the review for the first episode before I ever saw it, and the review, I don't remember it, but I remember being like, oh, that's that doesn't sound like it's a good thing. That sounds like a questionable thing. um
Oh.
yeah, like
Huh.
they were like and as we when we actually talk about the episode, there's lots
Yeah.
of things
Oh
that
yeah.
as a writer reviewing a show about the lifestyle that you live, you'd be like, what?
Yeah.
So there was that, and then so that would have been season one, and then at some point in time, um Showtime and premium network cable shows, like my parents never had them, but sometimes they would have like preview weekends where they would show like random, like for 48 hours they would air random content.
Huh.
And so I think I saw like one episode mid season, and then by the time my senior year happened, I had my own laptop
Mm.
and I was a pirate. Now that was a fucking chore. Like we're talking like I would have to leave it up and downloading all night, and hopefully the internet wouldn't crash.
Hmm.
We did have like broadband. Omaha was one of the first cities to have a stable broadband network. I had to like landline connect my
Right.
laptop and then hope that it still remained connected the next day.
Because it's video. It's not like you were downloading a song, which
No, yeah,
still took an hour.
yes. Um, yeah, I don't even, the upload speeds were crazy. Like, we're talking like in the tens and 20s of megabytes, right?
Yes. Like these are LimeWire Napster days.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Um, and that actually continued into college. I don't know if you remember that, but I think like especially when the oh my god, would it have been third season, second season? Um Anyways, we were like I was like downloading it
Yeah.
live, and then we would like try to crowd her on a computer and watch this horrible quality
Yes.
thing until um of course somebody saw me watching it that way and they were like, I have this friend who has Showtime.
Hmm.
I'm inviting you to come. And I'm like, but I watch it with people. And they're like, no, I'm inviting you to come. And I'm like, what is this?
Yeah. No,
And
you got like initiated into the Lincoln lesbian scene.
and that's how I became part of the local, and not just the university, but the local lesbian culture of
Hmm.
Lincoln, is because somebody who was, for lack of better words, interested in me, um,
Yeah.
wanted to spend more time with me, and had an excellent excuse, because I was like, fuck yeah, yeah, we're doing that. Absolutely. Um,
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I will say, and this is gonna happen with every moment of the show as well, that like that was a peak time of biphobia within the lesbian community, and I will say like the local lesbian scene did not embrace any of the bisexuals that existed around that time. Like the lesbians from the university slowly started to be like pulled in. But then like
mhm.
any, including me, but there were several bisexuals in that same circle that like never got the light of day. And the only person who's like local who took me under a wing also turns out is bisexual. So, um, yeah, the professor who mentored me was bisexual. Like so, like it's really interesting. Like the lesbians, particularly, biphobia was just so like ingrained within the community. I think that there was a systematic exclusion, even if they didn't feel like they were doing it.
Yeah, right. And you can say anything about it. You can say that, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I've made the excuse to you that, like, well, she's just into me, and that's why, like, I didn't get a plus one. Like, I
right.
guarantee you, I said to you, like, yeah, I didn't get a plus one. So,
Yeah.
and
But it
that
was
was
also,
true, but,
yes, but it was also like,
but
it's not just like you can't join us to watch the L Word. It's also like we won't date you.
yeah,
I ended up
it's
dating
so
a
weird.
lot of trans men and a lot of other bisexuals in Lincoln.
Hmm.
I don't know if I dated a single lesbian in Lincoln, period.
Yeah.
Maybe one. I think one. Um, but yeah, it was very strange. And then moving outside of Lincoln, and then I was like, it was like the whole world was open. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It was a really weird sort of cluster.
Yeah. And I don't like. It's weird too, because like when I look at my dating history, I've dated people who now identify as trans, and then like 7 or 8 women that now identify as bisexual. Like,
Yeah, that makes sense.
so
Yeah.
it's interesting how that process, right? Like maybe it's almost like it was biphobia is the right word, but it was like
Hmm.
they were like, I came out of the closet, I've earned this, like I'm not going back. And so
Yeah.
like maybe seeing you also kind of, I don't know, made them question their own sexuality in a way that they weren't ready to deal with yet. Um,
Yeah. I think it was there was biphobia but also transphobia, and a lot of that kept people within maybe the lesbian closet. Kept
mhm.
them identifying as lesbians because it gave them like a card into this club.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, and this is a narrative that has become more popular, or not more popular, but perhaps more solidly defined, right? The
Hmm.
trans exclusive radical feminism turf. Like,
Oh yeah.
that wasn't a thing that anybody would have had that word for, or
No.
maybe, yeah, I don't ever remember hearing that, but that was certainly, these are women's spaces.
Hmm.
And not only are trans men not invited because obviously they identify as men, but then
Hmm.
also trans women were never,
Right.
even more so, I believe. Like in that
Yeah.
that and seeing that evolve, like as we got to know more trans women in our community,
Hmm.
um
And this is the time of like the
was.
Michigan Women's Festival was being exclusionary. I
Hmm.
think we at the time I remember calling them lesbian separatists, even though like because a lot of them did
Yeah.
identify as being from that tradition.
Hmm.
And so yeah, that like turf didn't exist, but they were
Yeah.
absolutely turfs. Yeah,
Lesbian separatist. Yes.
yeah,
For sure. Um, and so weird how many of that group have either since come out as trans or
yeah,
bisexual.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it happens.
They just needed a little more chaos.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Ooh, were there any bi icons?
No,
No.
nothing. No
Right?
one that
Like
I can think of.
I stop at Margaret Cho. I knew she
Oh
was bi.
yeah,
Her comedy was about bi. We watched her comedy and we're like, yeah, this is
that's
a
true.
bisexual woman. Like that was another frequent stop at Blockbuster, right? Was anytime
Yes.
there was a Margaret Cho special, we went and rented it.
Yes, that is true. I think she
So,
was
but
the only one though.
that's literally the only person I can think of that was like really, really, really solid and felt good about their identity. Um,
Yeah,
and it was part of their comedy, right? Like I'm sure there were other bisexual people, right? But
yeah. I mean, a lot of celebrities who were bisexual were not out at the time,
mhm,
or weren't out publicly. But I do remember.
including like some of the cast, which we can
Oh
talk about.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was just
Mm,
not. It was, and it's weird to think about it now. And I think for queer people, like young queer people now, it's uh, they don't know what that feels like, to not have
yeah.
anyone, right? Or have one
Mhm.
person and that's it.
Yeah. Right. Well, and then some of the earlier stuff that I talked about on Gay2k is stuff that kids could access, but then this show, The L Word, um, mature content on a
Hmm.
premium network, not something that you're going to be able to stumble across on the WB or Freeform or whatever it is now, right? It's the CW/Freeform
Right.
or two like young adult channels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like pre-Glee, there was really nothing for kids
Uh huh.
or teenagers.
Yeah, I haven't decided if Glee makes. I feel like just like the first season of Glee, because it didn't really like explode with the queer, and it was kind
Hmm.
of like, like it existed and they talked about it, but
Right.
not like really strongly. I think that falls into the same cultural wave of gay.
Yes.
But then after the first season, it it changes the game in a positive in a way that increases representation.
Yes. Yes. That's a good way to put it.
Okay, so none of us really remember exactly when we watched this pilot originally, but I know that I watched it probably the least. I almost always in my rewatches after, especially after it ended, I almost never watched the first season, and I know some of that is just
Hmm.
I don't know. It's kind of tonally different. I feel like season two
It
is more
is.
like the soapy dramedy. Like it knows that it's over the top, and I feel like
Yeah.
season one takes itself way too seriously. Um, so yeah, let's talk about this.
Yeah. It felt like it was clearing its throat, the pilot. It was like, here is everything that we're gonna do. And like, here it is over the top. Um,
Hmm.
but it didn't know that it was over. I don't know if it knew that it was over the top, actually.
No. So the L
Yeah.
Word is a
Yes.
show about women in West Hollywood, the majority of whom are gay. It centers kind of around the pilot, I will say, centers around two couples. One is a lesbian couple, Bet and Tina, who are starting the process of having a family biologically. And then another couple, which are a straight couple, their neighbors, Tim and his girlfriend, Jenny, who we first see when he picks her up from the airport. Um, Before we talk about anything else, how does Tim afford that house in that neighborhood
It
on an
makes no
assistant
sense.
swim coach's salary?
It makes
It's
no
like
sense.
it's West Hollywood. It's at least 3 bedroom, 1 bath, or 2 bedroom and a studio
Right.
and the
It has a
back, right?
studio in the back. That's wild. That is no, there's no way. Like Bet and Tina
Jenny,
affording their house perfectly makes sense. Like
yeah,
she
Tina
runs
says she was in development beforehand, and Bet
and
is
Bet
a
is high powered
the
and
curator of a museum.
yeah,
Yeah.
it makes total sense. But then next door to them is Tim and Jenny, who has no job. Like, no,
Jenny
absolutely not.
who, yeah. Jenny who's only maybe been published once and is living as a writer
Yeah,
who doesn't have a full-time job. Yeah.
yeah.
Um so suspend that reality for a second, because really when I started watching it I was like, wait, I don't think I was aware of just how unrealistic the life that any of them live would ever be for me when watching
Well, we
it.
were like
But
17 and it was pre 2008, and we were like, yeah, that makes sense. We don't know what money is.
oh, yeah, that's true. It was even before subprime mortgages, so it's not like Tim got
Hmm.
a really great interest rate with no credit.
Right.
He, okay.
A lot of it seems aspirational. I think it's meant to be, right? Like, it's glamorous. It's not just glamorous, but it's like it's a tight-knit group of friends into which a stranger kind of comes in. So
Mhm,
we are supposed to be, well, Tim, really, because he's like literally he's the first person we see. And I'm like,
mhm,
why? But it makes sense. Like he's the person who's going to introduce us into this world. But then we meet Jenny, who is like the actual character who's going to kind of,
mhm.
infiltrate this
Right.
group. But it's like that coziness of having a really tight knit friend group. And watching the pilot made me feel like I was hanging out with a group of friends, which I think it was like from a writer standpoint, from a narrative standpoint, was brilliant because
Mhm,
you're dealing with a whole bunch of queers all over the nation, a lot of whom don't live in a place like LA. So you're providing them with this feeling of community and this feeling of a glamorous, like West Hollywood lifestyle that they can never have. And
yeah,
so that you keep them coming back. Like it like narratively, it's well designed. Let's put it that way.
yeah. And as I was watching it too, right? Like putting the timeline in my brain of like, these friends just show up at this bar, club, coffee shop place and
Everything.
just sit and all talk together
Hmm.
daily while they drink coffee.
Yes.
Like, first of all, that wouldn't happen now because I talk to most of my friends are all over the country and I talk to them via text, right?
Right.
But um even if we all lived in the same place and we were getting coffee together, we'd be on our phones and we'd be rushing off to our jobs.
Right. And Bet is like she's the only
Yeah.
one that's like, I can't do this right now. I have to go. And she's constantly rushing away. And then everyone else is just like, let's just sit here for hours and hours and talk because they
Hmm.
have these quote unquote jobs. Tina's unemployed. Dana is a tennis player who apparently never practices. And I
At least not in the pilot. Yeah.
no, I totally forgot about her, by the way. When she showed up, I was like, oh my God, she exists. I like erased her from my head. And then Alice is a journalist, I guess, a really
Hmm.
well respected one. So I guess I could see her kind of doing
Yeah.
this regularly.
Well,
But
right. Well, even as she was sitting there, she was like, I'm thinking about this piece. So, like, she's just kind of like,
yeah,
getting inspiration from her community as she
yes.
sits in West Hollywood. Um, and Shane, I don't think they say what Shane does in the pilot, but she's
Yeah,
a stylist,
I think
right?
there's something about hair.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like
Yeah.
also, how does Shane afford that lifestyle?
I don't think she lives anywhere. No, I'm kidding. But, I don't remember in the early seasons seeing her take anybody home. I just remember her going home with people. So
Yes,
maybe she literally just like lives
doesn't
in
have
like a
rent.
really, yeah, really, really like crash couches and kind of thing. But
That would
Hmm.
make sense.
So the show opens, not opens because it opens with Tim, but like
Hmm.
one of the first scenes is Tina talking about she's ovulating, right?
Yes.
And the, the whole process of how they, and I get it, right? They had to make this show, palatable to straight people,
Yeah.
and
Or they
like,
thought they did.
yes, I don't think they, yes, eventually had to at all, and it took them at least all of the first season to realize that that was not an audience that they actually
Right.
needed to be on board. Um, but like the whole concept of how they're going to go about and get physically pick up sperm on the day that she's ovulating
Yeah.
to then go inseminate it. Um, what? I don't remember my reaction to watching it when it aired first. My reaction was probably like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But now, like, my wife, we had a donor. We
Hmm.
shopped for sperm on the internet, and then it was sent to the clinic that she got inseminated at.
Hmm. You
Um,
didn't keep it warm between your thighs as you drove to the
so
clinic.
ironically, no, but also kind of because when we picked it up from the sperm bank level
Hmm.
of the hospital, we had to carry it down to the clinic. So
Hmm.
yes, it was like physically in my hands, and I was keeping sperm warm for
Hmm.
that ride down the elevator. So I could relate to that moment
Nice.
just a little bit, not like driving all over the city. Sorry, my phone. Just yeah, just a little bit, not like driving all over the city with a.
Hmm.
And like the fact that they would get all the way to the clinic and be prepared for insemination and then be like, "Oh, the sperm is a dud." Like, what? How? Like, as a person who has gone through this process, is like, why wasn't he screened before this exact moment? Like,
And also, why are they so like, why do they want someone they know? Like, why not just go to the sperm bank and ask for a donation? Like, and like
yeah.
screen people that way. But they seem to like, and we never are led into this process of how they decided, like, we must actually know this guy.
Well, and at first for Bet, I think she says something about like wanting someone who's like artistic, right?
Yeah, she keeps wanting an artist.
But then they give up on that pretty early after they find out this person's sperm is a dud, and Alice has the brilliant idea of we'll just throw a party and invite
Right.
everybody that can produce sperm that we know to this party.
Which is like that idea itself also, oh my God. Tina's reaction when the
Oh, mm-hmm.
oh my God, the donor that Bet had
The
picked out
Marcus,
turns out to
yeah,
be black, and she
yeah.
like freaks out and then like justifies it and is like, I can't tell if the show wants us to be on her side or not because she's being very racist and there's no like
I
going around that.
absolutely blacked out that moment. I have no memory of that. Um, like,
Yeah,
but like watching it, I was like, what is she freaking out? Oh my god, are you serious, Tina? Like
yeah.
Marcus Allenwood, who is eventually the person who is the donor and is,
Hmm.
the sperm donor for their child, um, comes in, and Bet had known him from something related to art, and he
Hmm.
had agreed on a whim. And then he shows up at their house with Tina unknowing who he was, and he's going to drive with her to the clinic so he can masturbate in a cup. And
Hmm.
um, which is just a dumb.
Yeah.
But anyways, so they have this moment where he walks in the door, and she's just like floored, and she has to like step out and swear because of how he looks. And then he clocks it right away. He's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, Bet didn't tell you I was black, did she?" And I was like, "What a fucking calm reaction to that."
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
I would have been like,
if I mean, it makes sense to be like, if a black man in 2004 would probably know what that
mm-hmm,
reaction was. But then Tina tries to get the receptionist at the clinic on board. She was like, and the clinic was the clinician or the receptionist was like, "Are you sure that you want to do this?" And Tina's just like, "I know, right?" But then the receptionist is actually talking about the fact that she was like,
Yes,
"Big
she's a
men
big
produce
dude.
big babies."
Big babies. Which is very insightful of her. I'm sure she's seen that and read the stat lines.
Yes.
So, yes, that dude, that would be a big baby for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I don't know. I don't think we were ever supposed to like Tina, honestly. Um,
her storyline gets, yeah, I definitely think that she goes through a lot, and then
yeah.
it's like when you want to root for her, then like we're introduced to another love interest that is not a likable person at first,
Right.
in the second season, and then it yeah, Tina, you're right, like she's just like an antagonist, but they
Well,
end up together.
they
I
do,
mean,
but at the same, like, she's never sympathetic, and this is, this whole episode is just me being like biphobia, but all of the bisexual characters, there's three of them, and none of them get good storylines. Like Alice is the closest, but then she gets tragedy. So she becomes the tragic bisexual, and then Jenny and Tina both get the villain edit every time. So their
mm,
arcs are all villain, and like, yeah.
poor Jenny Schechter.
Oh my
Like, and I
God.
know, right? I mean, I felt it. Like when it was happening, I was like, fuck Jenny Schechter. And like that was like the whole arc of the final season opened with every episode someone saying, I'm going to kill Ginny.
Yeah.
Because they all hated her so much by the
Yeah.
end of the show. And that's so insane that we
Mm-hmm.
like sat there and were like, yeah, let's find out what happens.
Yeah.
Fuck
And
Ginny Schechter.
like that, the show did such a great job, and of course the actress did a really good job of like making us hate her, but it was completely unfair. And as I watched it, I was like, okay, so she's like a bisexual writer. Like, how could I not identify with her when I watched the pilot?
Yeah,
Like,
that was
that
what I
is,
was gonna.
yeah, it was
Mhm.
like asking me to identify with her. And she was younger than everybody else.
Mhm.
And
You know, they're
yeah,
only, then this is gonna hurt because they're all of them are younger in the pilot than we are right now. All of them.
all of
Bet is
them?
34. Bet is
No.
the actress was not. The character
Oh,
is
the
34.
characters.
Jennifer
Seriously?
Beals is definitely older, but yeah, I had to look it up, and it was like, yeah, no.
Oh
Eileen
my
Chalkin at some
God.
point said that they're supposed to be, and Bet and Tina are like 33 and 34.
I guess like they were going by the Gen X timeline of what
Right?
people's
Yeah.
lives look
Mhm.
like. And
Mhm.
yeah, like the millennial
And
timeline is so fucked.
right, and we established they already had careers, they already had a house, they already had
Yes.
money. So, like, for yes, if you've established all of that by your mid 30s, then yes, you need to be hopping on the baby train.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. Wow.
or you can take out a lot of loans to have a baby and then be paying it off the rest of your life. Whatever. I mean, everybody takes their own journeys. Oh, baby making is expensive for sure, for sure.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Mhm.
But I'm assuming just from, everything that the show said that Tina and Bet can afford to do this many, many, many times and fail many, many, many times before it actually works.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so let's go back to them all sitting around at the planet,
Planet, yeah.
and just how we kind of introduced to the other. Because we've talked about Jenny, we've talked about
Mm-hmm.
Bet and Tina, and we've said the other names. We haven't really talked about
Mm-hmm.
how we meet them, and then kind of some of the weird conversations they have, which I absolutely want to talk about.
Oh,
So yeah, like you said, Alice is a journalist.
mm-hmm.
Shane instantly is just like the fuck boy energy. Like
Yeah.
I just um
Like, we understand who Shane is the minute Shane shows up on screen. We're just
Yes.
like, oh, okay, we get it.
Hmm.
Um, but I mean, like, I was surprised at how predatory they all are.
Oh
They're
my
all
God.
so like they talk and act like men,
Hmm.
and it's
Oh my God.
weird.
The fresh meat, what was it? Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Fresh meat. I'd like that when they see Jenny the
Yeah.
first time. And then Dana, like, absolutely makes it more absurd and she says crispy, which I think is such a needed moment because she's like, crispy. And then they look at her like, no. But I think it's such a needed moment because they're all gross.
They're
And
all
so, like,
gross.
her failing at being that level gross
Yeah.
is good. It brings it back to like a comic moment as opposed to just predatory.
You know,
Um,
no matter what happens with this character in the future, and I know if everything that happens with this character, the pilot made me love Bet more and more because she's
mhm,
the only one who's not predatory. She's the only
mhm,
one who's not trying to fuck anything that moves and has a vagina. Like
yeah.
the only one. Even Tina like gets in on the predatory things. Um, oh God.
Oh my god. And the one conversation that I was like, what the fuck is this? It was in part two,
Hmm.
and Jenny's there, or maybe it was at the end of part one, but they're talking about Shane's nipple confidence. Do you remember that?
Yes. Yeah.
Like, I was watching that, I was like, I almost wanted to be like, stop trying to make fetch happen, right? Like,
Hmm.
that's not a thing. Like, don't try to create a thing that's
But also like
not a.
how many
But, like,
people are not happy with their nipples? And like now that you've introduced this idea, you can't put it back into a box. Like there's thousands of lesbians now across the US that are like, are my nipples
do, do I not get laid because I don't have nipple confidence? Um, yeah, obviously.
Yeah. No, it did remind me of being naked all the time during that era, though. Do you not remember? I was like naked all the time.
I don't know.
And I don't know if
Maybe
this had an effect. If this conversation is why I was so naked during my 20s, but I was.
there was a lot of nudity in general and excuses to be
Yes.
naked or partially naked or,
Yeah.
yeah,
Plus it
just
was
doing.
funny to be naked around gay men who like found it would get squeamish around the female
Mhm.
body. It was funny.
Yes. Um, Now I'm like, how naked was Sindu? I mean, I think you were reasonable. I think we had a very, I don't know how typical our experience is. Maybe it's completely typical of gays that live in a college town because
Hmm.
we had not only the university culture, which helped us become, but we had a huge gay bar in town that had culture, and like
Yes.
we performed at this bar and we stripped nearly naked at this bar. Like,
Yes.
that
And
can't be a common thing.
well, it can't be because the bar was open to 18 plus. Like even if
Yeah.
you couldn't buy alcohol, but the fact that we could get inside changed
Hmm.
everything. Because if we had been barred until we were 21, we like that part of our college life wouldn't have existed.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. No, we were like club kids for a minute. It was weird. Like, we
Yeah.
would, yeah, pre-game, make sure we were drunk before we got to the bar and almost nearly falling over, and then somehow stumble into the bar and somebody would make sure we got home. I don't know who.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure this
We never.
backfired, but like at least on the queer women side, no one seemed that predatory in real life. Like I think on the like for gay men, there was definitely a lot of predatory stuff going on. But like I would implicitly trust an older lesbian that I met at the bar to like not have to be
Right.
okay, to
Well,
like take care of me.
and the ones that like were more like, I think that they made their advances known, and if you weren't
Yes.
into it, you didn't have to fuck around with it, and if you were into it, you would have a good time, right? Like there wasn't
Yeah,
like a like the consent there was pretty explicit, and they took whatever the answer was for its face value
right.
and moved on. Like,
Which, I mean, I didn't realize that that was a unique thing,
mm-hmm,
even in a lesbian space, because I've only ever been drugged at a bar once, and it was a lesbian bar in Boston. And
mm,
like thankfully I had friends around and they took me home and like, you know, it was fine, but I it was such a weird realization the next morning to realize I had been drugged at a lesbian bar by probably by a lesbian who wanted to take me home. And then I was like, this never
mm.
happened at the Q.
Yeah, no, I mean they would just ply us with alcohol.
Yes,
um,
which, you know,
but yeah.
but you're right, like the lines around consent were respected.
Yeah, and I don't know if that was just like, now that I'm saying this out loud, like Sindhu, like we had a network. Like
Yes,
people would know. Like if we woke up in somebody's bed and we don't
right.
remember who they were or how we got there, that person would have been lambasted and like fucking torn up by the
That's true.
community. Like,
That's true. It was such a
like,
small community that you couldn't really be you couldn't count on anonymity at all.
mhm.
Yeah, that is
So
true.
I mean, I hate to be like, it wasn't really that safe. We were just well known. But I mean, I do think that is some of
Yeah,
it. Like,
no, you're right. There's a certain safety
it's
that comes
certainly
with that.
not
Yeah.
like the planet where there's a new lesbian walking in every night or whatever the hell is going on in that bar. Like, how do these people, and because of our experience with the Q, I'm like, how do these people not know Shane? Some of them don't care, but
It seems like like at this point, who Shane has been there for a while. Shane should have
mhm.
slept with everyone. Like the numbers don't make sense.
Oh god, the chart.
Oh, yes, I love the chart. Oh, it's
I
my
think it's
favorite thing.
probably I think that is probably the most influential thing to
Yes.
come out of the L word. And I don't just mean like because it was a chart.
Hmm.
It caused us to be honest very quickly with our friends about what we did and with whom.
Yes.
Because we were literally making our own charts.
Yes. I remember having one stashed behind a couch somewhere that we'd update after every party
Oh god, that
on
is
like
I'm
poster board. It was
mhm.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So
just a great idea.
the chart on the show starts out as um Alice explaining, is she talking to Dana when she's sitting there talking
She's
about it?
talking to it must be Dana.
It must be Dana, because if it was Shane, it wouldn't be hard to connect them.
Right. Yeah.
Then she's talking about it. She's saying that um, I bet I can connect the people that you've slept with and the people that
Yeah.
I've slept with in less than 6 moves. So it's kind of like the 6 degrees of separation game,
Yeah.
but for lesbian sex.
Yes. I think the 6 degrees of separation came after this. No?
No, there was a movie, 6 Degrees of Kevin
Oh,
Bacon
yes,
was the
that's true.
game. And
Yeah.
so we're talking about Kevin Bacon's popularity. We're talking like early 90s.
Okay.
Um, so that, but no, yeah, absolutely inspired by that concept. Um, so they sit down, and Dana at this point is a closeted tennis star, so she talks about how she never gets laid and
Hmm.
has only maybe slept with 2 women at that point, which I feel like that's something that changes about Dana pretty quickly, but whatever. For the sake of the pilot, that's the character that she is. Um, and so they like map it out, right? They're like,
Hmm.
Dana, you hooked up with Melissa, and Melissa hooked up with this person, and I hooked up with my ex who used to date so and so. And they like draw lines through each of these people. And that concept became such a thing that like I don't know a lesbian in 2005 who hadn't made a chart
Hmm.
or was in the process of still tracking a
Yeah.
chart. Like,
I still think about our chart sometimes.
you still want to go back and try to
Yeah, in like a
connect it.
nostalgic way. I'm just like, oh,
Hmm.
I was too young. I was not yet a
Um,
hub.
no, hilarious enough, my wife,
Hmm.
Courtney, used to, her high school girlfriend was Amber Johnson, who, let's say is a hub
Yes, yes, it's a
in
hub.
our community. I was on their chart, which is not really that surprising.
Yeah. I mean,
Before
you were
like
kind of a hub.
Courtney knew me,
Ah,
like she knew of
interesting.
me before
From a
she knew
chart.
me.
That's amazing. That is
Yeah.
amazing.
Hmm.
I also think it's interesting that like you and I are only connected by one person.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, there's not a whole lot of overlap, um, which is weird. I mean, not that
Yeah.
weird, but if anything,
Isn't
it
it weird?
speaks
I
to
think that's
the,
weird.
yeah.
Yeah, because
I
we
don't,
like we had all the same friends.
but I remember an ex of mine had a moment with an ex of yours, a particular ex of yours, who that he said to her, like, I would consider this, but you used to be with Sarah. So, I mean, I'll just say it's not for
Amazing.
lack of trying
Right.
on some people's part.
That's funny.
But I don't know. I
And there
don't
are
even
some
want to.
surprise hubs that, you know, um, that I didn't expect. But yeah, no, yeah. It's fun to think about, but I didn't remember that the chart shows up in the pilot. I thought it was like, far along in the series where they like came up with this chart, but no, it's
Hmm.
like it's there. It's already filled
Yeah,
in.
it's
Like
on a
it's
giant
great.
whiteboard in
Yeah.
the background. And I don't know how much they talk about it again until, like, I think season 3 they introduce a character who is from a different part of LA that they never like interacted with, and then they like can connect this Poppy
Yes, I was gonna say
to
Poppy, the big who was a bigger
the
hub than
chart.
Shane. It was like this big deal. Like, oh, she's bigger than Shane.
Hmm. Right. And so I don't like, I think that, and around that time, weren't they launching like a social networking site
Yes. Yeah. I've
called
completely
the
forgotten
chart
what it was
or
called.
something?
Yeah.
I think it was called the chart. And like it
Oh,
was supposed to be like we go on there and we like connect, like we make our connections to each other. But like who wants to do that like globally, Like,
publicly, yeah.
yeah.
Publicly and globally. It's like, yeah. But then how do you know, like, if people are who they say they are? Is it supposed
Right.
to be a
And then,
dating site?
and do you have to then like confirm if somebody's like, yeah, I've fooled around with Sarah? Do I have to be like, valid? Check. I agree. That did happen. Um.
I mean, they could have
Okay.
just done it through Facebook. If it had been a Facebook plugin, it would have worked.
Mm-hmm. Facebook has gone through a lot of reiterations since
It's a
we.
weird place now.
It is it is a weird place. Um. I mean, I remember when it didn't have a wall, and then it had a wall where you could write stuff.
Hmm. I
Yeah,
remember when we
it's.
started poking each other.
Yeah, what the hell? Oh my god.
But that was a
Like,
way of flirting. It was like if you got a poke from
well,
somebody you
and
didn't
it's similar,
expect.
right? And it was similar, like you and I had a streak.
Yes.
Like
Oh
we
yeah,
poked
like
each
a
other every
Snapchat
day.
streak. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like it was like that same kind of friend. Like I'd be like, "Damn, Sindu, are you okay? You didn't poke me yet today." Like, do you not have internet where you are?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember getting a poke from someone. I had had lunch with someone, and then you were like, that's like you're giving signals to this person. I was like, no. Then I got a poke from them, and I was like, oh. Like the poke somehow confirmed their interest in me.
Hilarious. Yeah, that tracks, actually. Um, damn. Okay. Back to talking about
Yes.
the L word because we haven't even talked about Marina and Ginny yet.
Oh,
So I
Marina.
mentioned that they had a party
Hmm.
where Bet and Tina are busy talking to every man that might be interested in ejaculating in a cup for them. It doesn't go well. They get denied a whole bunch of times.
They
But
do.
a side plot, and perhaps actually maybe the main plot in that party is Marina, Alice, and Ginny are sitting on a couch or in a living room. I think Marina's not on the same couch. And Alice is trying to talk up Ginny about her writing and
Hmm.
how they're the same type of people because they're writing.
Yes.
Um, and then Marina sits down and I don't remember it being this pretentious, or maybe because I was like a kid, I was like, that's how grown-ups talk. That's so cool. When when she was like she calls her out on the title of her short story being a
Yeah.
play on Nietzsche. Like
I mean, okay. It's like it's over the it's like it's relying on the audience not like being impressed by that reference, being impressed by like references to Amy Bloom and Carson and Nietzsche. And I'm like, I like as me right now, a writer and a professor, I'm like, this is not very this is like talking to my undergrads. Which I mean,
mm,
there might be smart and talented, but it's not an equal conversation. And
right.
Jenny, I was like, oh, Jenny, you are so like she was annoying. Like immediately, I was annoyed by her, and I didn't understand their interest in her. I was just like, anyone who has the level of esteem that Alice has gotten from writing would not be like, tell me about your short story. Like
I
it just
publish
makes
weekly
zero
in
sense. Yeah.
I publish weekly in a magazine, but tell me about your one short story.
Yes. It
Your
just
random
wouldn't
award.
happen. I
Like,
mean, maybe it would happen. Maybe that's like, I will flirt with you by asking about your one short story.
mhm.
Um, but that,
Um,
yeah.
so I need to the directing in that scene is so stupid. I am sorry. Whoever directed that moment and like they go and while Marina and Jenny are both talking, there are these extreme close-ups on their lips.
Yeah.
And like, yes, okay, like that's part of attraction. They're looking at each
Hmm.
other's mouths while listening to what they're saying, but like it's done so extreme that it's like the dead horse has been beaten and it's like completely dead. There's
It
nothing left of the horse by the end of the scene.
Nothing in this pilot is subtle, which I mean, I guess the nothing in the show is subtle at all, but
Mhm.
that moment in particular, yeah, that's just like there's
Mhm.
absolutely no subtlety. It's almost shot like a porn, like the beginning of a porn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then so from that moment, like they have this connection, and then like less than 5 minutes later, Marina barges into the bathroom with her,
Yeah, just like
and
goes in to the stall that Jenny's before she can lock it. And then like that could have very easily been assault.
right,
And like who's to say it isn't? Jenny
right.
didn't explicitly consent. There was no enthusiastic consent there.
There wasn't a consent at all verbally, for sure.
But it
Um,
also wasn't a conversation we were having at the time.
Absolutely not. Yeah, and I think that goes back to the thing that you were talking about earlier with how predatory they all seem. I think there's this moment in lesbian culture where it's like we have the freedom to be out, so therefore we should talk about the people we're attracted to loudly so that
Yeah.
people know, and like we shouldn't be ashamed to talk about it, but then we're also still just using the predatory male gaze, right, to
Yeah. I
to
mean,
to talk about women.
there was no other uh like example of how to talk about women except
Mhm.
for how men talk about women. So it's like,
Hmm.
if we're going to do it, then that's the only way that's legible. Like that's the only model we have. And so we're just gonna talk. Oh, I mean, I've heard women talk about women that way. I think I've talked about women that way sometimes.
I'm sure we did. Like, I mean, not like every day, not like
No.
we were
And
never.
not to that extent.
No, we were
We're
never
never
those
like fresh
people.
meat.
We never like cruised or whatever the
No.
equivalent of. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
That goes with the serial monogamy element, though. Um, didn't have a whole lot of opportunity for doing the cruising.
Yes. Yeah. Were you single at all?
Okay, so let's be honest. My high school relationship ended when I left high school. Like, yes,
Yeah.
we were still together. But at that point, like my freshman year, I mean, and I think she would say this too, like neither one of us were like there was no fidelity
Right.
there really, and we were like kind of like weirdly codependent on each other like emotionally, but even
Mm,
then not really. It was just like this was this thing that I'd been doing for so long. Up until that point I didn't know how to get out of it. So like I had a really interesting freshman year because I had like I will call like I was like single but like with a safety net of this looming high school girlfriend that nobody in college had to see or
mm-hmm.
face, but they knew was there. So I had an occasional hookup. I had some fairly deep ass relationships and like
Mm-hmm.
emotional affairs or whatever with women that I didn't sleep with too. So it was kind of um yeah, it was weird. It was very weird. And I don't know how common that is. But it was my experience.
I think
And like
it's
it
much
was
more common now that, like, I feel like we were always trying to define relationships. Like the cultural conversation was like, well, what is it? What are you doing? And I
Mhm.
think the L word reflects that, where people like women keep trying to define their relationship with Shane the whole time that the show is
Mhm.
on, and they can't. Whereas like Shane now would be better fit in the kind of casual hookup culture that's more prevalent.
Right. Yeah, I don't think there would be the same pressure on Shane too that we see throughout the rest of the series to
Hmm.
like settle down and be something other than who she is.
Right. Like
Um
Bet and Tina are the ideal. Like that's supposed to be what
like
you're
everybody
yeah,
should want to get to that point.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and make
Yeah.
babies. Yeah.
And stop having sex apparently.
Oh my god.
And they even call
The
it lesbian. It's like every lesbian related phrase has to be in the pilot. They were like, we have to stuff it all in. We have to make the joke about
Mhm.
what does a lesbian bring on the second date, moving
Mhm.
van. We have to do lesbian bed death. We have to do lesbians trying to have a kid. We have to do what does this guy say? Right after the failed threesome with the potential sperm donor,
Oh my
he
god.
says, he says, and I quote, "Why is it that the only time dykes want to have sex with a guy, they're trying to steal his sperm?"
I love that quote so much. It's so bizarre
It's so
and
bizarre.
it's not reflective on any reality I ever
Right.
experienced. Like that is such a bizarre moment to me. And I know people who have used like friends' sperm to get
Hmm.
pregnant. I know people who have yeah, like had sex with a close friend in order to get pregnant.
Hmm.
It's never like let's I've never known anybody to be like let's go pick up a dude and have a threesome in order
And convince
to
him not to use
steal his
protection.
sperm. Like
Yeah.
I've never heard of anyone doing that. And I'm not saying that I'm sure it's fucking happened. Like,
I'm sure
but
it's happened, but like when you put it in a show, especially like the way that they do it, where they're just like, without knowing anything about him, anything about his sexual history, they're just like, oh, let's just not use a condom. I'm like,
yeah,
do,
they all get yeah.
STIs exist. Like you can't
Yeah.
just be like, no, this is great. Um, yeah, the
Yeah, good
other,
for that. good for that guy for knowing his boundaries and getting the fuck out of there.
I love
Like,
that the men are so like, well, I want to know where my sperm goes. Like every single guy on the pilot is like, I don't know. I don't know if I just want to do this. The other quote that I wrote down is Dana talking to Alice saying, when are you going to make up your mind between dick and pussy? And then she says, spare me the gory bisexual details.
yeah. Oh, and then I know the rest of. I love the rest of that quote too. Alice says, "I'm looking for the same things that I am in a man as I am a woman," and Dana goes,
Hmm.
"Big tits," and like lifts lifts her like hands up, like she's gesturing to large chest. Um, yes, that
Yeah. I mean, they're completely over the top, but they are some zingers.
God. And the thing is like, yeah, absolutely. At that time watching it, I would have been like, yeah, make up your mind, Alice. And we can talk about that, right? Like, Alice doesn't actually really have a bisexual journey on the show until
Mm-mm.
Generation Q, which is the sequel. I don't know if you've watched any of
I
it.
haven't watched it. But she does date some men.
She dates some men, but they're never like it. It
You know, she never
her
has a
main loves,
relationship with.
her
Yeah.
loves are
Yes.
all women.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, she does go on dates with men. That's true.
Yeah.
And I mean, fair. Like bisexuality is sexuality in general is a spectrum. So who knows? But
I just want to bring up very briefly, this is not about the pilot, but the male lesbian that
yeah,
was on the show. The show addressed it, and then we saw it everywhere. Like I remember one particular Imboltech, which is the Midwest bisexual, lesbian, gay, transgender ally college conference.
yeah. Look
One
at
of the
you.
ones, yeah, I think I some of the letters are not in the right order, but
Sorry,
it's okay.
not something I can answer right now. Sorry. Yeah.
No, you're good.
So Imboltech.
Imboltech, 1 year, there were like 10 male lesbians there. And I was like, is this a
What?
thing now? Like, are we doing and it was around the time when the L Word also had the male lesbian episode. And then of course the next year they were gone and I was like, oh okay, it was just like a blip
Mm-hmm.
in the Matrix. But Alice does date a male lesbian.
A blip in the matrix. um. Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know sometimes about cis men, and I know that there's like a journey that people go on, and I know that for trans women, there
Oh
are
yeah,
lots of
that's
trans
true.
women that are still attracted to women, but I do think that it was just I don't know how to explain male lesbianism. I don't. It's not like I.
I yeah. I still don't know how to think about it. I want to meet somebody who like convinces me that it was a good thing because it helped some trans women come out or something like that. But I think what it actually did is allow or give cis straight men a way into the community,
Yeah,
which is gross.
absolutely. Yeah.
And speaking of predatory, like that's yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, but then now we have all this new language about the unicorn, um, straight couple. Like when I was on dating apps, there were a lot of like profiles of straight-ish couples that were looking for a bisexual woman, the unicorn, to sleep with them. And
Yeah.
it's, yeah,
Dating apps. I don't. Yeah, I'm sorry that you had to go through that. I'm sorry that you're done going through it. So,
yeah, no, it
because I
was it
can't
was
live
a weird time.
vicariously through your weird dating app stories. Um,
But then that is exactly what Bet and Tina are doing with that party.
yes.
They're just doing it the opposite way. They're fishing for, there should be a term for trying to steal sperm. by having a threesome.
Yeah, gross. Oh my God, what about that conversation after the party when it wraps up when they're talking about, and it reeks of boomer slash early Gen X, because they're like, these new men are so sensitive, they want to know where
Hmm.
their sperm is going, like,
Yeah, what
what?
happened to the days of like a man not caring about his own children?
And I know there's supposed to be like some element of comedy there, but it's not delivered in a comedic way, really. And it's
It's
not
not.
like it.
I feel like they're actually upset. Like they actually expected men in 2004 or whenever it's supposed to be to just be like, yeah, whatever. And some of them are, but they want, they want the actual sexual aspect of it too.
Mm-hmm. How do we do this? That scene with the artist, and he's like,
Yeah.
are all of us there? Uh,
Which I mean, like, if they finally agreed to that, then why not go to that guy who's
I
clearly
know. I had that
okay
thought at
with
the end.
the
I was
donation?
like, why not go back to that guy? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like,
Um,
because it wouldn't have been as interesting of a moment for TV. Um, Speaking of TV interesting moments, I want to break it down. There was a lot of heterosexual sex or sexual acts
yes.
in this pilot.
Yes.
Um, and there were moments of lesbian sex as well. But
Right.
like, I don't know, like the amount of times the amount of screen time that Tim's ass got was
Yes.
like, caught
I,
me off guard, because I was like, what?
I mean, I think this is like the show didn't know who its audience would be yet. And I
They're like,
think they fully expected a bunch of straight men to watch the show for like the sexy bits, and then they gave Tim as a way in for that potential audience before they realized like there's enough queer people in this
mm,
country to like make the viewership, and we don't have to pander to a straight audience. But yeah, like there's more straight sex than there is queer sex. And the straight sex gets a sexy edit, whereas the some of the queer sex, especially between Bet and Tina, does not. Like it's
mm-hmm.
just so not sexy.
It's like sad sex.
It's sad sex because they're not into it.
Yeah, yeah, they're not in a good place, and that
Yeah.
is, yeah.
Yeah. And then I guess like Jenny and Morena in the bathroom, but I don't think they have sex. I think they make out.
No, they make out. They hook up later. That Yeah, they have
Yeah.
sex later in Marina's bed, which is probably, yeah. If we're gonna be like, that's the hottest show or the hottest
Hmm.
sex scene on the show, yeah.
Yeah.
But like, it
But there
doesn't
was
have a whole
also a
lot to compete.
very like long sex scene between Tim and Jenny that I was like, how
Mm-hmm.
long is this thing? Like, are we still
Mm-hmm.
going? And like, and yeah, it was, and the camera like lingers on his body a lot, like
Yes.
his arms, his abs, his chest. I'm like, who is watching the show?
Oh my God. And I think it's before they actually have sex, but they're talking about Jenny fucking creeping on Shane in Bet and Tina's pool.
Oh God, yeah.
It's
And he's
like,
like,
tell me
describe it
about
to
it.
me. Oh, it's so
Yeah.
gross.
Which is,
Which I don't know if the show knows it's gross. I don't think it does. I think it actually is like this is how they get hot for each other. Because otherwise, without that bit, Jenny is totally disinterested in him. She is
yes.
not into it at all.
Hmm. Dude, and later when she's giving him the blowjob and she looks up with tears in her eyes and they still go on to have sex afterwards, I'm like,
Mhm.
what is happening? Like,
She's
I
just
don't know.
overcome by the beauty of this penis.
She just wanted his penis so bad.
Yes.
It brought tears to her eyes.
Yes.
Oh God. Ugh. I just don't. I don't know. I don't even know how to like wrap up talking about the weirdness of the show, because like, I mean, ultimately we go back to the Marcus Allen scene where they do get the sperm from this donor. Tina and Marina. That's hilarious. I'm glad that they weren't a thing, because that's
Oh yeah. No.
Jenny and Marina
Hmm.
have a affair. Start their affair, and at the end of the episode, Tim is handing Jenny a ring, an engagement ring, right? So
Oh right.
that
Yeah.
sets up the rest of the series for like this being a thing that's going to continue to happen, and like
And Jenny just
what's
like
Jenny gonna do?
digging a further hole for herself the entire season,
Hmm. Yeah.
like living
And
a
so
double life.
yeah, and so then I think the rest of the first season, and like I said, it's absolutely the season I watched the least, but I think there is just more of the like, here's Bet and Tina trying to have a baby and figuring that out, and what goes into it with
Yeah.
their families, and Bet's race, and how that
It's so clunkily handled. Like it's so clunky, Bet's
uh-huh.
race. And
Yes.
like
Uh
as so far the only person of color on the show,
well,
like
yeah, and then her sister, right? But that's
yes.
only tangential to
Yeah.
Bet's race. So, yes, the only, and like, Bet doesn't code switch at all. She's just like the same
Right.
person. Like when she's talking with her sister, she talks the same way. She talks to the people at the art gallery. She talks the same way.
Yeah.
And like to me, like the more I've known about, you know, queer people, queer BIPOC people, um, like
Yeah. There's a lot of code
there's
switching that,
code
yeah,
switching, and
that
it
happens.
seems so, knowing what I know now, it seems so insincere that like
I mean, were there any people of color in the writing room, in the writer's room on that show?
absolutely not for the first season, I
Yeah.
guarantee it.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that has a lot to do with it too, is that like that authenticity that you only get from having a writer who's had lived experience, who can bring that authenticity. Because like it doesn't matter if the actor has that experience, they can only do so much with the script that they're given, and the script
mhm.
makes Bet like a white person of color.
Yes, white acting for sure. Um, I do think though, like in the same time, like if I put my 2004 hat on, right, like it wasn't something that we were talking about
It
in
was
any
not.
way.
No.
So like I don't want to be like, in a way it was groundbreaking, because I don't think it was, but it was also eh, like the conversation with Kit that she has about it
Hmm.
is um like it was equally like, what, why would the conversation go like this? And the reason, like you said, the reason the conversation goes like this is because it's a conversation that's written by white people.
Right. Yeah, it's like what white people think the conversation should go. And also,
Hmm.
Kit is like overly coded as black. Like some of the things that she says, I'm like, that doesn't feel authentic. That feels like a white person's idea
Well,
of a black woman.
no, absolutely. Well, and the funny or tragic thing about it, right, is like Pam Grier became a star during black exploitation films in
Yes.
the 70s
Yeah.
and 80s. So it's like whoever was in that casting room was like, we need somebody who's black,
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
and as a
Like she
like
has had scripts like that handed to her all her life.
yes,
And so yeah, like
absolutely.
she does it, she performs it. But
Mhm.
I yeah, like that relationship could have been done in such a nuanced and beautiful way. But of course, this is before the time when people realized you actually have to have people in the writers' room and not just, you know. I think like somebody, I think it was Matt Damon, got into a fight with an interviewer because of this. Like around the same time when he was like, you have actors on screen, and they were like, no, you need people in the writers' room, and he was like, why?
Matt
And
Damon's
it's
lived it
like,
all, of course. He can be anybody.
right. But yeah, Bet is like it was kind of revolutionary though to have a super high powered sort of boss lady lesbian of color
Hmm.
um on the show. Like that was, I think it affected a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but yes, it would. Okay, yeah. So let's go ahead and talk about the impact of the show outside of or
Hmm.
past its. Let's talk about the legacy,
Yes.
um, outside of its existence. And we've talked about L word parties and the community kind of
Hmm.
around it, and how it became something that we talked about, things that we experienced, things that we like
Hmm.
made fun of and called extreme, and mutual hatred of Ginny Schechter
Yes.
fueling us through our gay trauma. Because,
Yes.
as bad as we had it, we weren't handling it as bad as Ginny Schechter,
That's true.
so we were all okay.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Ginny, Ginny Schechter, Ginny Schechter suffered so that we
So
could
that
make
we
it
could
out
live.
of our youth okay. Oh, God.
Yeah, I think it did change queer culture absolutely and irrevocably. It allowed us to imagine ourselves in an aspirational way. I mean, the whole premise is that LA is 20 years ahead of the rest of the country. So here's what it could look like. And
Right.
that the kind of cultural acceptance, the social acceptance that all of the characters on the show have, um, from their, like, not just their local communities, but their like employers and their
Mhm.
doctors and everyone who's around them that they have to interact with. That was revolutionary at that time. Like,
Yeah.
gay marriage had just been legalized in Massachusetts,
In
um,
Massachusetts, yeah.
in
Not in
Canada.
not in California, yeah.
Yeah. So to give the rest of the country, especially us living in Lincoln, Nebraska,
Hmm.
a way to imagine a future where we are accepted, like that was huge.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know how to be Bet Porter, but I absolutely wanted to be Bet Porter.
Yes.
I had no idea what that even. I don't know what that meant. I still don't, maybe. But I wanted, like and I thought that was like what everybody should want. I thought like everybody that was queer should want to be like this strong symbol and like
Hmm.
dress in pantsuits and talk from a position of power about how hard it is to be queer, but how much we thrive anyways. Like,
Yeah. I think there were several aspirational characters on the show, and Bet is one of them, and Shane is the other one. I don't know if we're supposed to aspire to be anyone else but those two.
hmm.
But it's two different ways of being
Yeah, for sure.
successful. Um,
Hmm.
but when I think of iconic characters, those two are the ones that stick in my mind. And I will say, when I was younger, I was like, Shane's the hottest thing to ever live. But now, as an adult, as a fully grown person, I'm like, no, it's Bet. It's always been Bet.
Mm. Yeah, I don't know. I never, I don't want to say like I very much understand that Shane is attractive. Like I always understood that
Right.
Shane was attractive, but I was never like, it's Shane that I want to sleep with. Like that was never it for me. I know that was it for a
That
lot
makes
of
sense.
people.
Yeah. But I mean, knowing the kinds of women you were attracted to, that makes a lot of
Yeah,
sense.
right.
But yeah, I think for a lot of people it was like Shane is and continues to be
Yeah, early seasons it was Dana. I mean,
like so self-hating in a way that is not attractive. Like the
no,
personality, I was just like, "Ooh, no,
no, and she doesn't get a whole lot better.
no.
She really doesn't. I feel like with Alice, it's like a little bit of a roller coaster because she has like growth and then she has trauma and then
Yeah,
she has more growth and then she at the end of the series is almost kind of like she's the one that has their more turf-ish storylines towards their eventual trans male failure
yeah,
of a narrative.
right,
I mean, not failure because it was the first one ever and it had to happen. And
right.
sometimes when you do the first thing. It has to happen, and it has to happen poorly because
Yeah.
nobody knows anything else.
Yeah. I mean, as much as we hated it and love to hate on it, the Max storyline, we still watched it. Whenever it came out, we still watched it, and we still watched it with all of our trans friends because that's the first time they had seen something like that on
Yeah.
screen. I'm glad that you made me rewatch this. Like I had completely forgotten what the first season was like. And like that you're right, tonally it is so clunky and weird. Like I didn't know what it was yet. But like it did bring back a lot of feelings about what that era was like, what 2004, 2005 was like
Oh
in
my
the
god.
queer community.
When Bet walked into the, was it the doctor's office or the therapy office, and she
Hmm.
has a flip phone open and she has
Yeah.
earphones into her flip phone, I laughed so hard. Like, I'm sure business people did that. Like, sure, whatever. But
Hmm.
it's like so jarring to be like, because I mean, honestly, like, it feels dated because of the content, but like, it also, fashion wise, doesn't feel that dated. They're not wearing like extremely iconic, except for Shane, maybe.
That's
Um,
true. But even then, I could like you could pluck any of them out of that show, put them into 2020. When are we? 2025.
2025.
God, that
And
was 20 years
yeah,
ago.
like I don't, and I've noticed that a lot. And I don't know if it's just cuz we're the age we are, but like even like when I'm watching The Office, like
Hmm.
if you watch The Office and that show aired in the late, 2007 to
Hmm.
2013 or something, what they're wearing, what business casual is, even for the women, like
Hmm.
it's not that like fashion for like the middle of the road people hasn't really changed that much in America.
No, it's also that like Y2K fashion is back.
Mm.
So and has been back for a couple of years. So I think like a lot of people right now, like a lot of young, like my students on campus are wearing the same things that we were wearing, which is
Yes.
trippy to like walk on campus and see like low rise jeans that are flared with like the
Are they
spaghetti
wearing like the
straps and
super
the yeah,
tight polos and then like the
yeah,
long camisole underneath? Oh
yes,
man.
yeah, and like all these things that at the time either did or felt too self-conscious to do because it felt too much like a girl who likes Britney Spears thing to do.
Yeah, and when I see people like or even when I see like other people on the internet talking about iconic 2000s culture, like I always kind of feel like adjacent to it. Like I watched it happen, but I was never really, I had my own iconic 2000s,
Yeah.
like I wore like stuff from the thrift store and like random dated novelty tees and like
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we had our own bubble of culture going on
Yes.
that
And you
didn't
know, a lot
reflect
of it,
like chunky belts and maybe
right.
occasional chunky
There
belt,
was
but
a
not like,
studded belt or two in there.
yeah, but not
Yeah.
like our whole wardrobe by any
No.
means.
No. And then, you know, a lot of it was because like I, I mean, for me, it was that I was had to be financially independent from my parents after that first year of college because they were they did not react well to me coming out, and you know, so like it wasn't like we could just go out and be like, "Woo, we're gonna buy all this stuff." We were all working. We were all like, we're all in Lincoln, which means we got trends like 5 years after after the rest of the country.
I swear frozen yogurt didn't hit us until like almost 2008. I swear.
Oh my
It was
God.
like barely a, God, I've enjoyed talking to you, Sindhu. I think we should pick something else to watch and talk
Yes,
about.
absolutely. This was
Um,
really fun.
yes. Wrap up thoughts about the show. Lasting cultural impacts, of course. I mean, I don't think when it aired they thought it would survive for as long as it did, much less go on to have like a
No, they did not.
reality type show spinoff and then a
Like a
second
reboot. Yeah.
coming.
Yeah.
Everything gets a reboot now though, so I don't know how, but
I mean, to be fair, I wish that we could move past the L Word reboots and the L Word spin-offs and the L Word other stuff and like have
Mhm.
original queer content on TV again. That would be
Of course.
really nice.
Ooh, not that it's Gay2k at all, but Sense8 is a brilliant show, and I wish
Oh,
there was
yes.
more
Yeah.
Sense8, just Wachowski starship
Yes.
perfection.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my wrap up. Go watch Sense8. No, yeah, we could talk more and more about the L Word. We could watch other episodes of the L Word. We could talk about all of the other things that came from it.
Hmm.
We didn't talk at all about the fact that not even Kate Moning, who played Shane, was out when season one premiered.
Right. No one was.
She got outed during like I think a second season interview where Jennifer Beals was like, somebody was like, "There's no gay people on the show," and Jennifer Beals was like, "What about Kate?"
Oh my God.
And then she's like, "Oh shit, what I said." Yeah, she got outed accidentally because Jennifer forgot that she
Right.
was in the closet, because I'm sure around the set everybody knew and nobody really thought about it.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, this is around the time when like there were a lot of Hollywood secrets being kept, and a lot of it was people who were in the closet.
yeah. Yeah, Clea Duvall, right? Like nobody thought she was straight, but like she
Right.
never said she was gay until like 2009. That's like one of my favorite, like,
I
why did
know.
this why did she wait to come out so long? Like nobody was like, "No."
To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if any of them came out. You know, like if
Yeah,
I would be surprised if any of them are actually fully straight.
right.
Now that we live in, I don't know, the bisexual tsunami, post bisexual tsunami era, where like
What's that?
everyone is bisexual.
Bisexual tsunami?
That's just what I'm gonna
Amazing.
call it.
I like it. Well, okay. Well, thank you for joining me on Gay2k for this very special L Word episode. And I hope that we can do it again soon.